About 50 years ago, 4 explorers decided they were going to go deeper than any other explorer before and find this true secret of the mummies. And after many years of study and research, they finally came across a new tomb with 2 sarcophagi or coffins inside. And they were very excited to see what they would find. So one afternoon, they entered the tomb. They lifted up the first coffin, and inside they found the mummy. They're very, very excited. They removed the mummy because they were hoping to find treasure beneath. But when they looked inside, there was no treasure. They weren't too despondent because they still had another coffin and they'd already found one mummy. So they went inside to the second coffin, and they were even more excited because they saw that the burial header was still intact. That's normally a sign for treasure. But they lifted up the burial header and there was nothing inside. So, a little despondent, they gave one of the explorers the task of deciphering the hieroglyphics, and then the other 3 studied the mummy itself. And they removed the mummy to look for any other messages or signs. But they found nothing. It was just completely blank. And they were just about to replace the mummy when in came their friend, and he was as white as a ghost. He shouted out, "This is terrible!" The hieroglyphics read, "He who disturbs me will suffer the fate of death." And as they looked at the mummy, they saw the mummy was floating. And they assumed this was to do with the curse coming true. So they quickly put the mummy back inside and covered up the coffin. They replaced, and he left it as best they could, and they closed the other one too. But little did they realize they'd actually switched coffins, so now the mummy was in the wrong place. But in their haste, they didn't notice this. And they got back to their camp, and they were a little freaked out, and they had a stiff shot of whiskey, and they got it a little better. And they were telling their colleagues, and of course the colleagues didn't believe them. So they came rushing up, and they lifted up the first coffin, and there was nothing inside. They then went to lift up the second coffin, and needless to say, there was nothing inside either. There was no mummy whatsoever. So they didn't believe the story, and even the explorers themselves started to doubt. Maybe that was all in their mind. They weren't sure. But over the next year, 3 of the 4 explorers all died in tragic accidents. And the final explorer knew this was the curse coming true. And if he didn't solve the problem, he would be next. So he came back to the site, and he was hoping to find some clues, and he opened up both coffins. And there was still no sign of the mummy. There was nothing. And as he was placing the coffin back, he noticed that the top moved. He pulled it off. And as he turned it over, he saw some more hieroglyphics, and they said, "Never fear, mummies here." Well, the explorer smiled at that, because when he went to look again, there was the mummy returned. So he quickly put everything back how he found it and left that place, never to return again. And he went on to live for another 50 years, having broken the curse. But he never ever bothered with the mummies again. Thank you.